Windsurfing, the high-speed sport of the 90s. People everywhere are joining the latest water sport phenomena. From kids to adults, the sport of windsurfing has exploded into a year-round activity that's fun for the whole family. And for those who enjoy competition, One Design is the purest form of racing and the most accessible to the average sailor. Today, from San Francisco, California, we bring you the most elite competitors in the One Design class. From Olympians to professionals, you'll see the world's best. The 1991 Tudor Watch Mistral World Championships. Produced by Jalbert Productions. Brought to you by Tudor Watch and Mistral Sailboards. Bring your technique to our technology. Hosted by the St. Francis Yacht Club.
Hi everyone, I'm Tom Pace. Welcome to San Francisco, site of the 1991 Tudor Watch Mistral World Championships. Behind me, the grandeur of San Francisco, the Bay, the Golden Gate, and the St. Francis Yacht Club host for this year's competition. During the week, we'll be featuring the very best One Design board sailors in the world as they compete for this, the Mistral Tudor Watch World Championships.
Over the course of the next half hour, we'll bring you highlights of 6 days of some of the most exciting One Design competition around. One Design means that these sailors are competing on identical equipment. The same Mistral boards, sails, booms, and masts make this event a true test of the sailor's ability. The course race entails upwind work as well as reaching work, as the sailors make 2 laps around the buoys. The course slalom uses shorter, faster boards, complete a similar course, only this time they only do 1 more reaching leg.
The rules that will most commonly come into occurrence here in the contest are those governing right-of-way and those governing touching buoys on the course. Right-of-way is very simple in sailboat racing. The sailor on the starboard tack will always have the right-of-way. Starboard tack simply means that the wind comes over the right side of the boat first, or in a sailboarder's definition, his right hand is front first on the boom. The other rule that's very common is touching marks. Should a sailor touch one of the buoys on the course, they can be disqualified. The sailor can exonerate himself by doing 2 full turns of the board or a 720-degree turn. When we come back, we'll meet some of our top competitors.
Tudor by Rolex. The rugged watch with the impregnable Tudor oyster case, seamlessly carved from a solid block of stainless steel. The special Tudor winding crown screws down tightly like a submarine hatch. Pressure-proof protection combined with classic styling. Tudor watches. Built to work wherever you work, wherever you play.
Welcome back to San Francisco. Let's take a look at some of the top competitors at the 1991 Tudor Watch Mistral Windsurfing World Championship.
Ricardo Giordano of Italy looks strong in the middleweight class. His ability in course racing events is unsurpassed. In the heavyweights, Great Britain's Julian Anderson has been winning consistently and is a favorite for the overall title. Jayne of Sarasota, Florida is favored in the women's events. Mike Gebhardt's experience as a One Design sailor should give him the edge over a very competitive lightweight division. After 3 course races, Julian Anderson wears the orange leader jersey in his division. In the middleweights, as expected, Ricardo Giordano is running away from the fleet. The closest race so far is the lightweights, with only 1 point separating Mike Gebhardt from fellow Floridian Kevin Moore. In the women's course racing, Jayne holds a lead over Sigrid Rondelet of Belgium. The beach is crowded with competitors and spectators as the next course race is about to begin. Ricardo Giordano, leading his division, has the crowd behind him as he sails out for the starting line. The sailors are closely bunched as they wait for the gun. It looks like a clean start, with most of the sailors getting to the line on time. Number 19, Giordano, has very good board speed as he passes Paul Heineken on the leeward or downwind side. And that's not easy because Paul has got clear air. Giordano looks comfortable as he tacks up the first leg. The advantage here is to stay inshore where the tide is more favorable. As some of the other middleweights stay out, Giordano's tactics pay off and he rounds the upwind buoy in first place. The heavyweight division starts next, and as the crowd watches, this fleet also works upwind near the shore, trying to use the tide to their advantage. Number 12, Julian Anderson, is out in front again. It seems like no matter where he goes, the rest of the fleet is behind him, and that's probably right where he wants them. Once all the divisions have started, the course becomes very crowded and thus more dangerous. Ricardo Giordano, recognizing this, stays out to keep clear air and away from a potential foul in a crossing situation. There's a real battle in the lightweight division. Number 393, Mike Gebhardt, puts a strong move on number 356, Kevin Moore. Meanwhile, Julian Anderson and Jayne Fenner are still leading their divisions. But Moore refuses to be passed by Gebhardt. These guys are really duking it out. Fenner and Anderson go back onto starboard tack as they head upwind. Mike Gebhardt perseveres and finally gets Kevin Moore. Ricardo Giordano makes a remarkably smooth tack from port to starboard, and he heads toward the shore in favorable tide. The rest of the fleet is spread out all around the course, with some of them rounding the upwind mark and heading for the jibe mark. In this pack is Jayne Fenner, and as she sails from the upwind mark across the breeze, she executes a perfect jibe around the buoy. These are the moves that make her a champion. Julian Anderson is so far out in front of the rest of his division, and he's so good on the long board that he looks to be uncatchable in the course racing event. Ricardo Giordano is in much the same position in the middleweights. As we wrap up the course racing, Ricardo Giordano crosses the finish line on starboard, and it looks as if Jayne Fenner will keep the orange jersey another day. And finally, we see how Julian Anderson feels about his finish. After 8 course races, Julian Anderson and Ricardo Giordano both have big leads in their respective divisions. In the lightweight division, Mike Gebhardt has dropped to second behind Kevin Moore, but keep in mind that Gebhardt is very good in the upcoming slalom event. And in the women's division, Jayne Fenner looks invincible.
Having competed here myself, I know that San Francisco Bay is the best place that there is for one design competition, and the city is a fantastic place to visit. Let's take a look.
San Francisco has become one of the most livable cities in America. Its ethnic diversity, stunning architecture, and unique landscape combine to make this not only a great place to visit, but also a great place to stay. From the curves of Lombard Street to the novelty shops of Fisherman's Wharf, San Francisco offers something to every traveler. Besides, who can resist a ride on a cable car or a visit to the Rock of Alcatraz? But the sailors here say that San Francisco Bay offers the most challenging combination of wind and tide in the U.S. That's why the Tudor Watch Mistral Worlds chose San Francisco as the site of this year's event. It's time for the course slalom races. Every sailor now takes some extra time to re-rig sails and make sure everything is prepared. Ricardo Giordano even relies on Mike Gebhardt's experience as a shortboard sailor to help him make the transition. But the biggest change may be for Julian Anderson.
Course slalom, I've done a lot of practice of that. We do that at home a lot in England. There's only one guy here I think could give me a bit of trouble, and that's the guy from the Virgin Islands. He's been doing a bit of World Cup. So, Andy Murrell, I think his name is. So, we'll have to see what happens. I'm going to enjoy it, see what happens.
The first course slalom race again finds the competitors close to the crowds as they stay inshore to keep out of the fierce current. Mike Gebhardt, number 393, makes the transition to slalom look easy. His freestyle experience will be a big help in this discipline. Remember, these boards are nearly a foot shorter and have no dagger board. That makes them harder to control. But not for Ricardo Giordano as he snaps in a picture-perfect jibe. Let's take a look at Mike Gebhardt in slow motion. As he nears the buoy, he lets the sail go and kicks the back of the board around with his feet. As the sail comes around to starboard, or right side to the wind, he sheets in and sails away. All this without losing a bit of board speed. That's the epitome of a flawless jibe. Not everyone can be that good, and it looks like even Julian Anderson has a bad moment every once in a while. He lets the sail get away from him here momentarily, but even though the rest of the fleet is bearing down on him, he gets himself back on the board using what's called a water start. Then he pumps the sail to get his speed up before he hooks into his harness. You can see how squirrely these boards really are. Jayne Fenner looks comfortable out there. and Ricardo Giordano still keeps his lead. Let's watch as Jayne comes into a jibe mark. While she may not be quite as smooth as Mike Gebhardt, her technique is much the same. And just like Mike, she loses very little time getting back up to speed. Even the big boats like the heavier breeze, but rather than having a big crew to rely on, these sailors must count on themselves to be skipper, tactician, and crew. Ricardo Giordano is still looking strong in the middleweights, and Jayne Fenner has the lead in the women. Julian Anderson has his board going well too. Number 393, Mike Gebhardt, is way out in front of his fleet in the lightweight division. As Ricardo Giordano crosses the finish line, he wraps up what has been an impressive week of course and slalom racing in the middleweight division. Julian Anderson also gets the gun and sets up a real race for the overall title between he and Giordano. The outcome for the overall winner will be determined when these two meet in the marathon race. Anderson seems to be the favorite based on the number of first-place finishes he has. Mike Gebhardt has fought back during the course slalom event and is now back in contention for the lead in the men's lightweight division. Jayne Fenner has been in the lead from the beginning, and it's no different here as she gets yet another first place. Hey, even the seals love windsurfing. So, after the course racing and 3 course slalom races, Ricardo Giordano and Julian Anderson are really in a dogfight for the overall. Mike Gebhardt's experience and maturity on the slalom board have launched him back into first place. And no one in the women's division has a prayer of catching Jayne Fenner.
When we come back, we'll take a look at America's windsurfing Olympic hopefuls.
Discover Barbados and
relax the Bayesian way, smile the Bayesian way, being the Bayesian way, only in Barbados.
Barbados is a peaceful paradise where you can share a serene, gracious way of life, the Bayesian way.
Feel the Bayesian way, only in Barbados.
Windsurfing has been a medal sport in the Olympics since 1984 and will be again this time 92 in Barcelona. Let's take a closer look at 2 of America's brightest hopes.
Jayne Fenner has been windsurfing since she was 13. Now only 20 years old, she knows what it takes to be a winner.
Just really important, to stay focused. I think a lot of time in the light wind is when it's really easy to get distracted, because that's when the tactics really get involved. And so like when you're going upwind and you're looking for all the wind shifts and shadows, and especially if you're further back in the fleet, it's really easy to get distracted or lose your concentration. But I think it's really important to get to as many of the events as possible, because that's where you're learning, especially if you don't have a training partner, because you can only go out and train by yourself for so long and get so much board handling and technique down. But where you're learning it is at the races, because you get starts, you get a group of people, and that's where you're really pushing yourself, is in the races, because you want to do well. I think sailing on the bay, first of all, is just, you can learn so much. With the currents and the wind, it's a great experience to be able to sail here. I've always been really competitive, and I just think winning the Olympics is about as far as you can go, and it makes me want a happy person.
Mike Gebhardt has the insights of a competitor twice his age as he trains for the Olympics.
Training usually consists of racing. Like we'll show up at an event usually a week before and sail out the site. Get a feel for the conditions, get acclimated, get your housing set up. Try to get a little routine going. preparation is making sure you're in shape, making sure you're confident with your equipment, you know how to rig the equipment for the conditions you have. There's a lot of tuning, subtle changes, and because we're dealing with such a small board and small sail relative to a big boat, we really feel that the changes, a small change can be a drastic difference in feel. It's a feel sport. You're trying to set everything up to where everything feels comfortable, and the more input or more power you can put through the rig, the quicker you're going to go. Right now I'm racing the fleet still, but as we get closer to the end of the event, you start focusing on one person. You're always trying to win every race, but there becomes a time, for example, the wind's doing something funky and he goes hard to the right. You're going to want to go with him, to not let him get in front of you. And even if you're relative to the other, rest of the fleet could lose some places. But if I prepare properly and don't make any mistakes, I should win. I have the tools and the ability, and it's just basically a matter of putting it all together and not making mistakes. That's what yacht racing is, or in my class with windsurfing, it's whoever makes less mistakes generally is going to be the winner. Consistency definitely pays.
It's marathon time. Time for the sailors to test their skill and endurance against a 17-mile course race that'll bring tide changes, wind shifts, and big waves. As we get set for the marathon, let's see where we stand. After all the points are amassed from the course and slalom racing, it looks like Julian Anderson has the best hope of winning the overall. Giordano has done well, but his division, like Gebhardt's, is pretty competitive. Jayne is, well, you know where Jayne is. In a departure from the other events, all the sailors will start at the same time in the marathon. This makes for a lot of boards at the line. As they make their final maneuvers in the starting area, they line up and head for the start as the gun goes off. It's a clean start, and because of the length of the starting line, everyone looks to have clear air. And what a sight seeing all those boards and sails against the backdrop of this beautiful city. Julian Anderson has a good start, but has to work his way through an awfully big fleet. Kevin Moore is on port as the fleet heads for shore to stay out of the strong flood tide in the middle of the bay. Jayne Fenner is leading the women up the first leg as the fleet begins to spread out. Julian Anderson and Ricardo Giordano both round the windward mark and head off on a reach in good position. The rest of the fleet begins to round the first windward mark well back from the two leaders. Our chase boat can hardly keep up with Julian as he speeds his way across the bay towards the first jibe mark. Ricardo Giordano is doing his best to keep up with Julian Anderson, but it will take more than raw speed to catch this savvy sailor. The sailors are getting pretty spread out around the course now, but there are moments when they get into a crossing situation, especially at the marks. Julian Anderson makes his way around the first jibe mark. He's sailing like a man on a mission, so smooth and sure that he seems to know this is his race to win or lose. His racing has been nearly flawless, and that last jibe proves that his ability and desire can make him a winner. Mike Gebhardt speeds along in the stronger wind. He also looks comfortable out there, settling in for the long race ahead. Jayne Fenner still leads her division, and Julian Anderson's lead seems to get longer every time we see him. Ricardo Giordano is really trying to catch Julian, but the Brit just seems to have luck on his side. Maybe Ricardo is trying a little too hard. That fall won't help him, but he does recover well. The marathon is really beginning to spread out now. When we come back, we'll have the finish, so don't go away.
Oh my God!
Killer Loop, more than just a sunglass. Killer Loop, a lifestyle you can wear. Killer Loop, performance sunglasses by Bausch & Lomb.
We're back at the Tudor Watch Mistral World Championships, and the marathon race is nearing its conclusion. Julian Anderson comes into a jibe mark perfectly, and his sail flips neatly around to get him that much closer to the finish line. He's the front board, way out ahead of his nearest competitors. Here's a look at just how far in front he really is. Jayne Fenner's performance in these World Championships has been nothing short of awesome. She's dominated every race with a combination of guts and skill. She too is far in front of her nearest competitor. Jayne rounds the last jibe mark and heads for home and the overall women's title. Ricardo Giordano has put up a valiant fight. He won his division handily and sailed all of his races very well. But the combination of Julian Anderson's ability and the stronger wind, which favors the heavy sailor, worked too much to Ricardo's disadvantage. Finally, Julian Anderson has his moment of glory. There's no better feeling in the world than winning a long sailing regatta, and as Julian makes his way to the shore, he lets us know just how good it feels. Our final standings: in the men's middleweight division, Ricardo Giordano was first. In the heavyweights, Julian Anderson dominated every race. In the lightweight division, Mike Gebhardt held on to claim victory. And in the women's division, our first place finisher and overall women's champion was Jayne Fenner.
As the sailors begin to pack up their gear, that means it's a wrap for this year's contest. Congratulations to Julian Anderson of Great Britain and Jayne Fenner of the United States, the overall champions for the 1991 Tudor Watch Mistral Windsurfing World Championship.